So good day everyone, my name is Manuel Luis Salamat. I'm going to report today about the Presidential Decree number 1096. So what is the Presidential Decree number 1096? So it seeks to improve the efficiency of the building performance by adopting measures that promote resource management efficiency and site sustainability, while minimizing the negative impact of building on human health and the environment. So Chapter 1, General Provisions. The contents are Section 101, Title, Section 102, Declaration of Policy, Section 103, Scope and Application, Section 104, General Building Requirements, Section 105, Site Requirements, and Section 106, Definitions. So, in Section 101, the title, so this decree shall be known as the National Building Code of the Philippines and shall hereinafter be referred to as the Code. Section 102, Declaration of Policy, it is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare, consistent with the principles of sound environment management and control. And to this end, make it the purpose of this code to provide for all buildings and structures a framework of minimum standards and requirements to regulate and control their location, site, design, quality of materials, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance. So, Section 103, Scope and Application. The provision of this code shall apply to the design, location, seating, construction, alteration, repair, conversion, use, occupancy, maintenance, moving, demolition of, and addition to the public and private buildings and structures except traditional indigenous family dwellings as defined herein. So B. Building and or structures constructed before the approval of this code shall not be affected thereby except when alterations, additions, conversions, or repair are to be made therein, which case this code shall apply only to portions to be altered, added, converted, or repaired. So, Section 104, the General Building Requirements. The first one, all buildings or structures as well as accessory facility thereto shall conform in all respect to the principles of the safe construction and must be suited to the purpose for which they are designed. Second, building structure or structures are intended to be used for the manufacture and production of any kind of article or product shall observe adequate environmental safeguard. The third one, buildings or structures and all parts thereof, as well as facilities found therein shall be maintained in safe sanitary and good working condition. Section 105, the site requirements. The land or site upon which will constructed and building or structure or any ancillary or auxiliary facility thereto shall be sanitary, hygienic, or safe. In the case of sites or building intended for use as human habitation or abode, the same shall at the safe distance as determined by the competent authorities from streams or bodies of water and or sources of air considered to be polluted, from a volcano or volcanic site, and or any other building considered to be potential source of fire or explosion. Section 106, Definitions. As used in this code, the words, terms, and phrases enumerated in Annex A hereof shall have the meaning of definition correspondingly provided therein. So, next is the Chapter 2, Administration and Enforcement. So, the contents are Section 201, Responsibility for Administration and Enforcement, Section 202, Technical Staff, Section 203, General Powers and Functions of the Secretary under this Code, Section 204, Professional and Technical Assistance, Section 205, Building official, Section 206, qualification of building official, Section 207, duties of a building official, Section 208, fees, Section 209, exception, Section 210, use of income from fees, Section 211, implementing rules and regulation, Section 212, administrative fines, Section 213, penal provision, Section 214, dangerous and ruinous building and structures, Section 215, abatement of dangerous building, Section 216, other remedies. So the first one is Section 201, the responsibility for administration and enforcement. So the administration and enforcement of the provision of this code include the imposition of penalties for administrative violations thereof is hereby vested with the power of the Secretary of the Public Works, Transportation, and Communication, hereinafter referred to as the Secretary. So Section 202, the technical staff. The Secretary is hereby authorized to constitute and prove in his department a professional staff composed of highly qualified architects, engineers, and technicians who possess diversified and professional experience in the field of building design and construction. Section 203, the general power and function of the Secretary under this code. For purposes of carrying out the provisions of this code, the Secretary shall exercise the following general powers and functions. So number 1, to formulate policies, plans, standards, and guidelines on the building design, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance in accordance with this code. So number 2, issue and promulgate rules and regulation to implement the provisions of this code and ensure compliance with policies, plans, standards, and guidelines formulated under paragraph 1 of this section. So number 3, evaluate, review, approve, and take final action on changes and amendments to existing referral codes as well as on the incorporation of other referral codes which are not yet expressly made part of this code. So the fourth one is prescribe and fix the amount of fees and other charges that the building official shall collect in connection with the performance of regulatory functions. Section 204, professional and technical assistance. The Secretary, with the assistance of this technical staff, shall provide such professional, technical, scientific, and other services including testing, laboratories, and facilities as may be required to carry out the provision of this code. So provided that the Secretary may secure such services as he may deem necessary from other agencies of the national government and may make arrangement for the compensation of such service. He may also engage and compensate within the appropriations available thereto the service of such number of consultants, experts, and advisors on full or part-time basis as may be necessary coming from the government or private businesses, entities, or associations to carry out the provision of this code. So Section 205, the building officials. Except as otherwise provided herein, the building official shall be responsible for carrying out the provisions of this code in the field as well as the enforcement of orders and decisions made pursuant thereto. So due to the exigencies of the service, the Secretary may designate incumbent public works district engineers, city engineers, and municipal engineers act as building officials in their respective areas of jurisdiction. The designation made by the Secretary under this section shall continue until regular position of building officials are provided or unless sooner terminated for causes provided by law or decree. So Section 206, the qualifications of building officials. So, no person shall be appointed as a building official unless he possesses the following qualification. So, the first qualification is it is a Filipino citizen and a good moral character. So, number 2, a duly registered architect or civil engineer. Number 3, a member of a good standing of a duly accredited organization of his profession of not less than 2 years. So number 4, has at least 5 years of diversified and professional experience in building design and construction. Section 207, duties of a building official. In his respective territorial jurisdiction, the building official shall be primarily responsible for the enforcement of the provision of this code, as well as the implementing rules and regulations issued. Therefore, he is the official charged with the duties of issuing building permits. So, Section 208, the fees. Every building official shall keep a permanent record and accurate amount of all fees and other charges fixed and authorized by the Secretary to be collected and received under this code. So, Section 209, the exemption. So, public building and traditional indigenous family dwellings shall be exempt from payment of building permit fees as used in this code. The term additional indigenous family dwelling means a dwelling intended for the use and occupancy by the family of the owner only and constructed of native materials such as bamboo, nipa, logs, or lumber, the total cost which does not exceed 15,000 pesos. So, Section 210, the use of income from fees. So, any provisions of law to contrary notwithstanding, the Secretary is hereby authorized to prescribe the procedure for the use of all net incomes realized by the office of the building official from the collection of fees and charges not exceeding 20% thereof, in accordance with Section 208, Section 211, implementing rules and regulation. In the implementation of the provision of this code, the Secretary shall formulate necessary rules and regulations and adopt design and construction standards and criteria for building and other structures. Such standards, rules, and regulations shall take effect after their publication once a week for 3 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation. Section 212, administrative fines. So, for the violation of any of the provisions of this code or any of the rules or regulation issued thereunder, the Secretary is hereby empowered to prescribe and impose fines not exceeding 10,000 pesos. Section 213, penal provisions. So, it shall be unlawful for any person, firm, or corporation to reconstruct, enlarge, alter, repair, move, improve, remove, convert, demolish, equip, use, occupy, or maintain any building or structure or cause the same to be done contrary to or in violation of any provisions of this code. Section 214, so dangerous and ruinous buildings or structure. So, dangerous buildings are those which are herein declared as such or structurally unsafe or not provided with safe ingress, or which constitute a fire hazard or otherwise dangerous to human life, which in relation to existing use constitute a hazard to safety or health or public welfare because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, obsolescence, or abandonment, or which otherwise contribute to the population of the site or the community to an intolerable degree. Section 215, abatement of dangerous buildings. When any building or structure is found or declared too dangerous or ruinous The building official shall order its repair, vacation, or demolition depending upon the degree danger to life, health, or safety. This is without prejudice to further action that may be taken under provisions of Article 482 and 694 to 707 of the Civil Code of the Philippines. Section 216, Other Remedies. The right action and remedies provided in this code shall be in addition to any and all other rights of action and remedies that may be available under existing laws. So next is chapter 3, Permits and Inspection. So let's head on to the section 301, Building Permits. No person, firm, or corporation, including any agencies or instrumentality of the governmental, shall erect, construct, alter, repair, move, convert, or demolish any building or structures or cause the same to be done without first obtaining a building permit, therefore, from the building official assigned in the place where the subject building is located or the building work is to be done. Section 302, Application for Permits. So in order to obtain a building permit, the applicant shall file an application therefore in writing and on the prescribed form of the office of the building official. Every application shall provide at least the following information. So, number 1, a description of the work to be covered by the permit applied for. So, number 2, certified true copy of the TCT or true copy of the land title covering the lot on which the proposed work is to be done. The applicant is not registered owner. In addition to the TCT, a copy of the contract list shall be submitted. Number 3, the use or occupancy, the use for which the proposal work is intended. Number 4, estimated cost of the proposed work. So, to be submitted together with such application are at least 5 sets of corresponding plans and specifications prepared, signed and sealed by the duly mechanical engineer in case of mechanical plans, and by the registered electrical engineer in case of electrical plans, except in those cases exempted or not required by the building official under this code. So section 307, the appeal. So within 15 days from the date of receipt of advice of the non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of permits, with applicant may file an appeal with the secretary, who shall render his decision within 15 days from date of receipt of notice of appeal. So the decision of the secretary shall be the final, subject only to review by the office of the president. Section 308, Inspection and Supervision of Work. The owner of the building who is issued or granted a building permit under this code shall engage the services of a duly licensed architect or civil engineer to undertake the full-time inspection and supervision of the construction work. Section 309, Certificate of Occupancy. So no building or structure shall be used or occupied, and no change in the existing use of occupancy classification of building or structure or portion thereof shall be made until the building official has issued a certificate of occupancy, therefore as provided in this code. So chapter 4, Types of Construction. So section 401, Types of construction. For the purposes of this code, all buildings proposed for construction shall be classified under identified according to the following types. So number 1, or the type 1 buildings shall be wooden construction. The structural elements may be any of the materials permitted by this code. So type 2 buildings shall be wood construction with protective fire-resistant material and 1R fire-resistant throughout, except that permanent non-bearing partitions may use fire-retarded treated wood within the framing assembly. So type 3 buildings shall be a masonry and wood construction. So structural elements may be any of the materials permitted by this code, provided that the building shall be 1R fire resistant throughout, exterior walls shall be incombustible fire resistive construction. So type 4 buildings shall be of steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. Wall, ceiling, and permanent partition shall be of incombustible fire resistive construction, except that permanent non-bearing partitions of 1R fire resistive construction may use fire retardant treated wood within the framing assembly. So type 5 buildings shall be fire resistive. So the structural elements shall be of steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. Walls, ceilings, and permanent partitions shall be incombustible fire resistive construction. Section 402, changes in types. So no change shall be made in the type of construction of any building which would place the building in a different subtype or type of construction unless such building is made to comply with the requirements for such subtypes of construction, except when the changes is approved by the building official upon showing that the new or proposed construction is less hazardous based on life and fire risk than the existing constructions. Section 403, requirement on type construction. So subject to the provisions of this chapter, the Secretary shall prescribe standards for each type of construction and promulgate rules and regulations therefore relating to structural framework, exterior walls, and opening interior walls, and enclosures, floor, existing, and stair construction and proofs. So Chapter 5, requirements for fire zone. So, Section 501, fire zone defined. Fire zones are area within which any certain types of building are permitted to be constructed based on their use or occupancy, type of construction, and resistance to fire. Section 502, building located in more than one fire zone, a building or structure which is located partly in one fire zone and partly in another shall be considered to be in the more highly restrictive fire zone when more than 1/3 of its total floor area is located in such zone. Section 503, move building. Any building or structure moved within or into any fire zone shall be made to comply with all the requirements for the buildings in the fire zone. So Section 504, temporary buildings. Temporary buildings such as reviewing stands and other miscellaneous structures conforming to the requirements of this code, and shed, canopies, and fences used for the protection of the public around and in conjunction with construction works may be erected in the fire zones by special permit from the building official for a limited period of time, and such building or structure shall be completely removed upon the expiration of the time limit stated in such permit. So Section 505, center lines of street. For the purposes of this chapter, the center line of an adjoining street or alley may be considered an adjacent property line distances. Distances shall be measured at right angles to the street or alley. Section 506, the restriction on existing buildings. So existing buildings or structures in fire zones that do not comply with the requirement for a new building erected therein shall not hereafter be enlarged, altered, remodeled, repaired, or moved except as follows. So A, such building is entirely demolished. B, such building is to be moved outside the limit of the more highly restrictive fire zone to a zone where the building meets the minimum standards. C, changes, alterations, and repairs may be made provided that in any 12-month period, the value of the work does not exceed 20% of the value of the existing building, and provided that such changes do not add additional combustible materials and do not, in the opinion of the building official, increase the fire hazard. The additions thereto are separated from the existing building by firewalls as set forth in the subsection 604. Materials of which the building or structure was originally constructed, provided that the cost of such repair shall not exceed 20% of the replacement cost of the building or structure. Section 507, the designation of fire zones. The Secretary shall promulgate specific restrictions for each type of fire zones. Cities and municipalities shall be divided into such fire zones in accordance with local physical and spatial framework plans submitted by city or municipal planning and or development bodies. So next chapter is chapter 6, the fire resistive requirement in construction. So section 601, fire resistive rating defined. So fire resistive rating means the degree to which a material can withstand fire as determined by generally recognized and accepted testing methods. So 602, fire resistive time period. Fire resistive time period rating is the length of time a material can withstand being burned, which may be 1 hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, etc. Section 603, fire resistive standards. All materials of construction and assemblies or combinations thereof shall be classified according to their fire retardant flame spread rating, as determined by the general accepted testing methods and or by the Secretary. Section 604, the fire resistive regulation. So the Secretary shall prescribe standards and promulgate rules and regulation on the testing of construction materials for flame spread characteristics tests, on fire damage, fire tests, or of building construction and materials, door assemblies, and tin-clad fire doors and windows assemblies. The installation of the fire doors and windows and smoke and fire detectors for the protective signaling system application and use of controlled interior finish, fire resistive protection for structural members, fire resistive walls and partitions, fire resistive floors or roof ceiling, and etc. So chapter 7, the classification general requirement of all buildings by use of occupancy. So section 701, occupancy classified. So A, the first one is the building proposed for construction shall be identified according to their use or the character of its occupancy and shall be classified as follows. So group A, residential dwelling. Group B, residential hotels and apartments. Group C, education and recreation. Group D, institutional. Group E, business and mercantile. Group F, industrial. Group G, storage and hazardous. Group H, assembly other than Group 1. Group I, assembly occupant load 1,000 or more. Group J, accessory. So letter B, other subgrouping or divisions within Group A to J may be determined by the Secretary. Any other occupancy not mentioned specifically in this section or about which there is any question shall be included in the group which it most nearly resemble based on the existing or proposed life and fire hazard. So section 703, the mixed occupancy. So the general requirements when a building is of mixed occupancy or used for more than one occupancy, the whole building shall be subject to the most restrictive requirement pertaining to any of the type of occupancy found therein except in the following. So number 1, when a one-story building house more than one occupancy, each portion of the building shall conform to the requirement of the particular occupancy house therein, and number 2, where minor accessory uses do not occupy more than 10% of the area of any floor or building, nor more than 10% of the basic area permitted in the occupancy requirements, in which case the major use of the building determine the occupancy classification. So letter B, the forms of occupancy separation. So occupancy separation shall be vertical or horizontal or both, or when necessary of such other forms as may be required to afford a complete separation between the various occupancy division in the building. Types of occupancy separation. Occupancy separation shall be classified as 1R fire resistive, 2R, and etc. So, number 1, 1R resistive occupancy separation shall be of not less than 1R fire resistive construction. All openings in such separation shall be protected by a fire assembly having a 1R fire resistive rating. So number 2, a 2R fire resistive occupancy separation shall be of not less than 2R fire resistive construction. All openings in such separation shall be protected by a fire assembly having a 2R fire resistive rating. So number 3, a 3R fire resistive occupancy separation shall be of not less than 3R fire resistive construction. All openings in wall forming such separation shall be protected by a fire assembly having a 3R fire resistive rating. The total width of all openings in any 3R fire resistive occupancy separation wall in any one story shall not exceed 25% of the length of the wall in the story, and no single opening shall have an area greater than 10 square meters. All opening of the floor forming a 3R fire resistive occupancy separation shall be protected by vertical enclosure extending above the below such opening. The walls of such vertical enclosure shall be of not less than 2R fire resistive construction, and all openings therein shall be protected by a fire assembly having a 3R fire resistive rating. So number 4, 4R fire resistive occupancy separation shall have no opening therein and shall be of not less than 4R fire resistive construction. So letter D, the fire rating for occupancy separation. So occupancy separation shall be provided between group, subgrouping, or divisions in occupancy. The Secretary shall promulgate rules and regulations for appropriate occupancy separation in buildings of mixed occupancies, provided that where any occupancy separation is required, the minimum shall be a 1R fire resistive occupancy separation, and where the occupancy separation is horizontal, structural member supporting and separation shall be protected by an equivalent fire resistive construction. Section 704, the location of property. So in general, no building shall be constructed unless it adjoins or has a direct access to a public space, yard, or street on at least one of its sides. So the fire resistance of walls. Exterior walls shall have fire resistance and opening protection in accordance with the requirements set forth by the Secretary. Projections beyond the exterior wall shall not exceed beyond a point 1/3 and the distance from the assumed vertical plane located where the fire resistive protection of openings is first required to the location of the property which is the least restrictive. So distance shall be measured at the right angles from the property line when the opening exterior walls are required to be protected due to distance from property line as the sum of their areas of such opening in any story shall not exceed 50% of the total area of the wall in that story. So letter C, buildings on the same property and building containing courts for the purpose of determining the required wall and opening. When a new building is to be erected on the same property with an existing building, the assumed property line from the existing building shall be distance to the property line for each occupancy as set forth by the Secretary, provided that two or more buildings on the same property may be considered as one building if the aggregate area of such building is within the limit of allowable floor areas for a single building. And when the building is considered as different occupancies are different types of construction, the area shall be that allowed for the most restrictive occupancy or construction. Section 705, Allowable Floor Areas. The allowable floor areas for one-story building and buildings over one story shall not exceed the limits prescribed by the Secretary for each occupancy groups or types of construction. So, Section 706, Allowable Floor Area Increases. The floor areas herein above provided may be increased in certain specific instances and under appropriate conditions based on the existence of public space, street, or yards extending along and adjoining two or more sides of the building or structure subject to the approval of the building official. So, Section 707, Maximum Height of the Building. The maximum height and number of the stories of every building shall be dependent upon the character of occupancy and the type of construction as determined by the Secretary considering population density, building bulk, width of the street, and car parking requirements. The height shall be measured from the highest adjoining sidewalk of ground surface, provided that the height measured from the lowest adjoining surface shall not exceed such maximum height by more than 3 meters, except that towers, spires, and steeples erected as a part of the building and not used for habitation or storage are limited as the height only by structural design if completely of incombustible materials or may extend not to exceed 6 meters above the height limits for each occupancy group if of combustible materials. So Section 708, Minimum Requirements for Group A Dwellings. So dwellings location lot occupancy. The dwelling shall occupy not more than 90% of the corner lot and 80% of an inside lot and subject to the provisions of easement on light and view of the Civil Code of the Philippines shall be at least 2 meters from the property line. Light and ventilation. Every dwelling shall be constructed and arranged as to provide adequate light and ventilation as provided under Section 805 of this code. So, C is the sanitation. So, every dwelling shall be provided with at least one sanitary toilet and adequate washing and drainage facilities. Letter D, foundation footing shall be of sufficient size and strength to support the load of dwelling and shall be at least 250 mm thick and 60 mm below the surface of the ground. So letter E, the post. The dimension of the wooden post shall be those found in table 708A. Dimensions of wooden post annex B-1. Each post shall be anchored to such footing by strap and bolts of adequate size. So letter F, the floor. So the live load of the first floor shall be at least 200 kilograms per square meters and for the second floor at least 150 kilograms per square meter. So letter G, the roof. The wind load for roof shall be at least 120 kilograms per square meter for vertical projection. So H, the stairs. Stairs shall be at least 750 millimeters in clear with a rise of 200 millimeters in a minimum run of 200 millimeters. So in letter I, entrance and exit, there shall be at least one entrance and another one for the exit. Letter J, electrical requirements. So all electrical installations shall conform to the requirement of the Philippine Electrical Code. Mechanical requirements. Mechanical system and or equipment installation shall be subject to the requirement of the Philippine Mechanical Engineering Code. So, Section 709, requirements for other group occupancies. Subject to those provisions of this code, the Secretary shall promulgate rules and regulations for each of other group occupancies covering allowable construction height and area, location on property, exit facilities, lights, ventilation, and sanitation enclosures of vertical openings, fire extinguishing systems, and special hazards. So next